Hello everyone on the internet and thanks for tuning in. I am RyuKiva of RyuKiva Toku.
And welcome to another episode of the Toku Bros. I'm the Winter Cosplayer.
Switch on!
And as elaborately said, today we're going to be talking about Master Rider Fourze.
Indeed we are. So let's get straight onto it. So what can you remember in the build up to before you watched Fourze?
So I have seen the images. At the time I saw images of the suit, did not like it. I listened to the opening, which actually I was surprised how energetic that opening was. When I heard the gimmick was switches, I was having so many question marks over my head. And the enemies were Zodiac based, and again, that added more question marks to my head. So I didn't know what the hell to expect, other than I heard it was high school meets space meets cosmic switches, and I'm like, what? So that's my build up.
The thing is, for me, I didn't watch Fourze when it was broadcasted. I watched it several years after. And I'd already heard all the negativity that people felt about it. But even sort of before the broadcast itself, I do vaguely remember that, they were doing a whole space theme. I remember seeing the suit and thinking the helmet looked ugly as F. And I think I remember hearing things like, oh, it is set in a school, like, it was sort of like, because Ichigo was like a scientist at a school, so they were making a lot of comparisons that the main rider Fourze also went to a school.
So like Mega Ranger, effectively.
Well, the thing is, at the time, I'm not sure if I'd seen Mega Ranger at that point. But, like, when it comes to the whole school setting, that's quite a common theme in Toku anyway. For me, I don't really remember thinking about Mega Ranger at the time. I might have done. But for me, like, because I was brought up with Mighty Morphin, etc., like, the whole school setting didn't really faze me, per se. Past first impressions, what do you remember of the first few episodes of Fourze?
I got a very, with the main character, I got a very reverse role of a great teacher Onizuka. I don't know if you've seen that before or heard of it. So short version, Great Teacher Onizuka is about a Yakuza wanting to be a teacher. Don't ask. It's a popular Japanese TV series. And this felt like, instead of a teacher, it's a student, like a Yakuza kid wanting to be a student. Just by the whole, suave thing and like all... gung-ho kind of...
And that's the vibe you got from Fourze in the first few episodes?
No, just from that main actor, really. And
right. I mean... Because of the crazy hair, right?
Yes. Episodes on its own. Forgive me, but I barely remember any of it.
Right. Well, you see, the first few episodes were a bit drab, and that's why a lot of people did feel negative about it. And I can appreciate why people didn't like Fourze, but for me, like, I was going to watch it beginning to end anyway. I wasn't going to switch off anyway, being a Rider fan. But I watched, I watched those first few episodes. I was like, actually, I can see why people aren't liking it. But then there was something a little quirky about Gentoku, even that bizarre uniform he was wearing. And the fact that, the fact that he kept that uniform kind of showed how bizarre and literally out of this world that this show was going to be. And, I think after I got past those few drab episodes where I was like, what the hell is this? I actually, I'll be honest, I actually did start enjoying it. So, I mean, okay, like, getting on to the actual cast of the show. Okay, so what did you think of the cast and the supporting roles?
Forgetful. I'm sorry, just... you can remember their faces, especially the annoying teacher, but then other than that...
No,
I'm sorry,
see,
it's like...
well, I'll do most of the talking on this one then, because I actually did like Fourze, but For me,
Right.
the
But
cast was the opposite. I actually remember them quite vividly because they were quite vivid characters. They were very contrasted. Like you've got Gentoku, who was like this new kid, this very peppy kid, and then they kind of went about their way of setting up how each kind of group of school children looked. So you had that jock, you had that cheerleader, you had that goth, you had like the two or three science nerds who then had their little secret Kamen Rider club. And again, like maybe in those first few episodes, it was a bit like, oh, this is just High School Musical, the Kamen Rider version. But actually, like it was once that intro kind of got through, you kind of did see that, they did develop the jock's character, the cheerleader did kind of wind down a bit, but then the goth girl kind of really did have like a bit of plot development within her. And then even like because there was the main boy of the science club, or I think it was part of the Kamen Rider club, that he was like, oh, my father was this, I was supposed to be following in my father's footsteps. But the girl, like, I'll be honest, I mean, even though I can't remember the names, I remember the characters. So so I can relate to to how you feel a little bit. Like even the comedy girl, like she was all like, oh, I want to be like the best scientist and stuff. I actually really did enjoy her comic relief. But for me, seeing things like Gentoku and his struggles, and then the teacher, I kind of felt he looked a bit weird. But I think when they brought in Meteor from another school, and just kind of the really sassy Bruce Lee style that he brought, that was something I really enjoyed.
I did like the name of Meteor, and I like. Oh, we'll get to suits later, but again, no offense, character-wise, it's unfortunately forgetful because you have all of these imaginative, and that's the only positive way I can say it is imaginative gimmicks like switches and whatever, which again we'll dive into more in depth later. But and then your set pieces like school, but then you have a Master Rider Club, which then you go into it and then it teleports to the moon, and then that in itself was
That's why that
just
show was so crazy though, and that was kind of what I kind of had hit. It's kind of what
I
gave me a bit of
no no
adoration
I
after a while,
couldn't I
personally.
couldn't I couldn't. So I know that Toku, sorry, or just Master Rider and any other Super Sentai whatever series is supposed to be out there, but
Hmm.
that for me
Oh,
was a
this show
bit
was definitely out there.
a yeah, in all aspects. It was so out there that I just couldn't keep up, seriously. But
Okay. I mean, it was a lot to keep up with, to be fair. So, like, if you
I
didn't like
mean,
the show, then sure. But, and again, I saw so
well,
much activity. But where I was
yeah,
genuinely, like again, I kind of went in with the fact that oh, it's Kamen Rider, I'll keep watching it. But I did actually enjoy it quite a lot once those kind of initial hurdles for me personally, and I stopped listening to all the negativity that other people talked about.
right. But just a quickie though, and it's a subject of out there and hard to keep up. Another thing to try and keep up is the quantity of the gimmick, the switches. But again,
We'll
we'll
talk
get to
about the
that. But
gimmicks. We'll talk about the gimmicks in a bit. But let's go on to the villains real quickly. So, like for me, there was the main general, the demon head. Like what I call the demon head master character, which is very done before, and anyone who's seen Dino Thunder would have like really been like, "Oh, it's this again." But I think when it came to like the commanders and that, they like the ones based on the Zodiac signs and that, I thought they had like a really good look, and maybe the personalities were a bit done before. But I like because there was the female one that kind of looked like a rose or something. Like I thought that was quite a cool look. And then like whether it was the monsters of the week or certain reoccurring student characters that were like that had the dark side in them and stuff. I really, like I kind of saw how the villains were really integral to the plot, and that was something that I liked.
conceptually, I like the idea of having the Zodiacs as your enemies. Fine. I just felt it was the suits looked so in your face, like too much, and predominantly, if don't, sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're a majority gold because they feel that Zodiacs were gold. On top of that, I just I couldn't keep up. Seriously, it was so. I
I
mean,
mean,
if anything,
maybe there was gold. I don't. For me personally, I don't personally remember that being too prominent. I mean, if anything, I was probably more prominent that it was like the demon headmaster's office, the demon headmaster's
yeah,
office, and that they were going in and it was all dark, and then they'd
yeah.
manifest their Zodi art look, and to me it was all like quite dark, apart from the female character who was very like rosy red.
Fair enough. But
Hmm.
this is my take from the enemies,
Yeah,
really. I
sure.
mean, I felt it was a bit much. There was a lot to try and keep up with the villain quantity, really. Whereas
There was a big
with
quantity, admittedly, of course.
yeah, but I'll give you an example of a Sentai series that had a lot of villains, but used them well. Magi
Okay.
Ranger. You can break it in 3 chapters, and they had pretty much more, if you count the third chapter of how many villains they had. But you can count all 3 chapters, and they had more villains than Fourze,
Fourze,
and
yeah.
yet it was used well. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Magi Ranger definitely used their villains well. And the thing is, like, for Magi Ranger, I kind of felt it was very uniform. So it was like, these are generals, they all get defeated one by one. Here's a new set of generals, they all get defeated one by one. Whereas
But at least,
At least with Fourze, it was kind of like like for me in Kamen Rider in general, I do find somewhat unpredictable. So at least like seeing how one commander would do this and one commander would do that. That's
okay.
kind of like how I enjoyed like the villain storyline. That's just my opinion.
No, but the thing is, hang on a minute. But the thing is with the generals or whatever, you have your one high, and then you have a few lowers. But or I'll give you an example as a good one. Dry. You have your 3 or 4 mains, and you stick with them throughout the whole season, and then you have some underlings. Boom. Whereas with this was like you almost have all 12 that you have to try and remember. Okay, that was this was that, that was
Again, but
this,
that's
this was
where it
that.
becomes like a multi-layered story. And again, you still had like the demon head, the demon headmaster at the
No,
top,
I
but then all the other
no.
teachers, etc. They were the ones trying to like make all the students become these like monsters of the week kind of thing.
It was all granted that the head teacher was the catalyst, if you will, but I just felt in my head
Yeah, the
that it was a
antagonist, of
bit
course, he was.
no, not just the antagonist, but the catalyst to keep all the villains together. But on
I
top of that,
guess. But then
but
they were
it,
also trying to be like the best commander as well, so that also came into
I
play as well.
couldn't. No, I
But
just
if you couldn't keep
see.
up, you couldn't keep up. But that's fair enough,
I
and a
know
lot of
because
people
that's why
felt
with the
like
villains
that
from
about it
Magi
as well.
Ranger it flowed. No, but that's why the villains from the Magi Ranger at least it flowed with the villain.
Because they did it like one at a time. Which again, if you like it linear like that, that's fine.
Yeah, no, but then with the villains from Drive, at least you knew the character. They gave them substance. Whereas with this, it just
No, I
felt
disagree. I mean, they definitely had substance. It's just it depends on who the focus was, or if you could focus on more than one person at the same time.
too much. But that's just my
I
opinion. I
no,
just
that's
felt it
fine.
was.
Let's go on to the henshin devices, the weapons, and I don't think there was too many vehicles in Fourze. Right, so the
Uh,
henshin device, that was one big belt with 4 switches that he could use at the same time. And
okay, but
admittedly, the gimmick, they really went OTT on it. I mean, I remember like the drill, the rocket, and the pogo leg at best. And then there was like, I think something like a total of 40 switches. And then you had fire states, cosmic states, which I think fire
electric.
states was just a red palette swap and Cosmic States, I think, was just the shiny one, wasn't it? If I'm not mistaken. But otherwise, yeah, the gimmicks are a bit too much, and they were a bit too fiddly and medley, and like, having the SH fig arts of it, it's like it's literally just a million pieces. So they were definitely trying to shift product with this one. But I did actually think
I
the belt was cool though.
So, in my opinion, straight off the bat, I will agree with you that it was a gimmick-wise, the switches were a straight-off product placement. Really, it's a whole collectible. It's X amount of whatever. Really, suit in on itself, cap, form suits in on itself, some were good and some were cack. So you had the electric one, which was cack, in my opinion. You just gave him an electric rod, that's it, with a color palette swap. You gave it the fire states, which was, again, color swap, which was, in my opinion, cack, were better than the electric one. You have the magnetic
I actually
states.
forgot
Now,
about
that
the
was
electric
good.
one, but yeah,
That
okay,
was
go on.
good. The cosmic state was hit and miss for me, but that's just me. Then you had with the base form, like you mentioned, you got your drill, you got your rocket launcher, you got your pogo, whatever, and then you have your plethora of whatever. Some gave him bug nets, speakers, whatever you give him, it's just stupid, personally, anyways. So anything that you can pretty much push, flick, or whatever of a switch, then that's basically you have your new cosmic switch. But other than that, as a driver in on itself, I will give kudos that they used 4 items to activate for henshining as a henshin device. I have to give kudos for that. That was very creative. And it does look cool. And the sounds, as in the 3, 2, 1, and then that was like almost like a launch kind of
Well, of
concept.
course, because
That
it was
was
all
cool.
space themed. Because even the
Yeah.
belt itself, like it looked like a space workstation. It looked like a space desk. It looked like a bridge or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So like I think at least the belt did look good, regardless as to what anyone might think of the gimmick.
Where you mentioned about the vehicles, that you had one which was his bike that can attach to something to basically shoot up like a rocket, but that about it really for memorable vehicles, that is.
Sure. I mean, to be fair, I didn't find the bike. I didn't really find that memorable at all, admittedly, considering Fourze is still one of my favourites. But okay, moving on. So, what key episodes stood out for you in Fourze?
None. I honestly don't remember any, to be honest.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like I can see how because it was so multi-layered, but at the same time, I think certain plot lines that stood out is like the way that certain teachers, especially like the female villain, would be like the one kind of seducing the students to wanting more power and to follow the whole Zodiac system. And then I'll say, like, especially for me personally, the Meteor storyline, like everything that was going on at his school, the fact that he came over, the fact that he was still, like part of that school and he was like wearing a completely different uniform and brought a different look. I absolutely loved that personally, and that was something that added a bit more flair to the series. Sort of like going mid-series, if you will. But talking series overall, what locations do you remember in Fourze?
Just the school in general, the hideouts. That's it.
Well, see, like, I mean, when it comes to the school setting, I actually thought, I mean, it's a very standard setting. I wasn't too sure how I felt about the fact that they accessed their Kamen Rider Club through one of the closets, through one of the storage rooms in the school. But then looking at sets like the actual Kamen Rider Club itself, I thought was quite cool, even if it was it was space cliche, but it was kind of like it kind of felt like like the way they kind of made it that sort of home from home kind of setting, kind of felt really good. And then even one thing I've mentioned already is like the headmaster's office. I really liked how that just became like this sort of like galaxy overlay, and you just see all this mad stuff happening in his office.
Let me ask this though quickly. Within Mars Rider, right, you have that in Fourze, you have your main set as within a school. When else was that done in Mars Rider? Because as a main,
I mean, that's a tough one because like when you look at Ichigo, he was working at a university kind of thing. Like people were like, was he a student? How old was he? Like, there's a lot of grey area because like they didn't really establish it properly. But I think when it comes to like setting as a school, that's quite a tough one because as well, When you look at
Yeah.
when you look at the older rider series, the riders themselves are generally older. But as we've got further down, like I mean, all right, like in terms of main setting, I'm pretty sure you're right. There isn't one, but like even when you see that Geo's just passed this, like Tokiwa Sogo was a school student. You look at, I mean, all right, this is the thing. So, like, Build was a scientist. X-Aid,
My
rather, was, he was
doctor.
a nursing student, like, a medical student.
Yeah. No, but the way I'm going with this is because during the Heisei era, right, during the Decade era,
I mean,
is
I'm
that
trying to think, I'm
what's
still
it?
trying to think as well.
What my point is what's it? That was one in a school, whereas the majority of the others, you could almost
It was
say
pretty much a
they
backdrop. So
had
even
it
Tokiwa Sogo, there wasn't really too much involved with the school, apart from maybe
right.
the final arc.
But
But
my
it wasn't a
point is
setting,
that
yeah. So I get you.
no, no,
I
no,
get
no.
you totally.
No, but my point is that some of the others would be majority
We're
being
probably
a
in a
cat.
cafe, yeah.
Exactly. Kiba, Deno,
At least no. At
and
least Kiba had, because Kiba was like a mixture of his violin workshop and the wonderful organisation. Deno was again the cafe. Wizard was mainly the cafe and the donut shop. But, I mean, again, that's kind of what sets Fourze apart from a lot of the others when you think about it.
that is one bonus. I'm not gonna or positive.
Okay, so like, moving on. What do you remember about the movie if you've seen it?
No,
You haven't seen it.
the only thing I will say that I have heard, seen images of is
The
Kamen
female
Rider
rider. Yeah,
Nadeshiko.
everyone's seen her. I mean, this is it. Like her story was a bit weird, and like I felt the movie was a bit weird, but again, it just adds to the weirdness of the whole series anyway. And like, I'm just like, oh, what sort of fan service is this supposed to be? But it's like it kind of added a little bit to Gentoku maybe, but again, not necessarily big things happening in it. So going on to looking at the smaller aspects of the series overall, what did you think of the music?
The intro has to be high on my.
It's definitely
Uh,
unique.
I'm just trying to think. It is so up there, like with great openings with a CAC series, like say Build, in my opinion. Anyway, great opening but forgetful series. And Build, by the way, Build's opening is amazing. I completely forgot about that one. But anyway,
We're not talking
same with
about
this.
build. You go on.
With this as well, fantastic opening, nice, catchy, uplifting, energetic opening.
Well, I mean, when it comes to the rest of the music, I can't say I remember too much. I mean, I remember like, especially like the headmaster scenes. It would be like the whole gloomy kind of thing, and that OP, that kind of wacky rap that this female does. It's still like I try to rap along and I can't because I don't speak Japanese. But it's still quite a fun tune to listen to at least.
Yeah.
Other
Yeah.
aspects. Do you remember anything about the fighting choreography of the show?
I mean, the only thing, if anything, I remember is the mediocrity of his rider kick being a mixture of him shooting himself up with a rocket in one arm and finishing with a drill kick.
This is why this series was so mental. This is why it was so fun. I mean, for me personally, this is why it's so fun to watch. I mean, when it comes to choreography, I mean, there was a lot of fight scenes, and it was a good mix. In my personal opinion, it was a good mixture of like fighting on the ground, but then they'd have like these wacky, crazy CGI scenes. I mean, especially like where they don't use hardcore pyrotechnics in Kamen Rider these days. It's like because this was a space thing, because it was supposed to be like a metallic look without being metallic, it's like you did see a lot of sparks flying, which even if it was CGI, it was at least better than not having them at all. So him sort of sliding around on the floor is kind of like it adds to the flair that was Fourze, and something that I actually appreciated. And like sort of like coming to the end of this, like that's where going into the final arcs and the climax of the series, like they kind of cut all that away, and they just had Gentoku right there, just fighting in the school hall. Absolutely insane ending, and and it kind of really added, the whole power of friendship, and the moral of the story, the moral of the whole series is something that I did come to appreciate at the end, and I felt that I actually grew a little bit watching Fourze from beginning to end, even if it was like, it had like this massive backlash, a lot of people didn't like it. For me personally, it's actually still one of my favourite riders of today. However you disagree, and again, a lot of people disagree, but I absolutely love this series, and the climax kind of really drove it home for me personally.
No, just correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the ending finish by pretty much Fourze telling, if I'm not mistaken, either one of the main villains or the headmaster, "Oh, let's just be friends."
Yeah. Well, like, it was kind of like, I kind of forgive you for all the nutty shit that you've done. But I think it's also, but it kind of then ties in with the whole thing, the whole massive cliche of him then becoming a teacher. It's insane.
That's like saying if either what was it? The white wizard from Master the Wizard, who pretty much convicts genocide just to revive his daughter, right? Spoiler alert. And pretty much wizards say, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll forgive you. It's all in a good cause."
Both shows give different messages, and at least with Wizard, like for me personally, I didn't like Wizard's ending anyway.
I love Wizard.
Oh no, I loved Wizard. I just didn't like its ending. Whereas with Fourze, like I didn't like its beginning, and like I could see why people didn't like it and stopped watching. But the fact that I kept watching anyway because I would do, I actually felt like I grew with it. I actually came to really like it. It was quite an energetic series. It was quite a batshit crazy series. And and I actually empathised with Gentoku. Right, like for like at some point in the series, I started empathising with him. Just as in the show, he will try to get people to be his friends, and some people would take longer than others. I felt that I was actually part of that journey as well. And like again, and it is a bit kind of cliche and happy ending kind of thing, because they've got to end the series somehow. Well, I think in terms of ending, it's by far it's not the worst. It's somewhat cliche, but again, I thought it was a standard ending to say the least.
As a roundup, I just felt it was a snooze fest for the lack of. I know it's a harsh opinion, but I just felt it was a very big snooze fest in my opinion. Boring, I guess. I'm sorry, I just barely couldn't remember anything, and the grandeur of or the hype of the opening didn't really make up for the lackluster of the series. I'm sorry.
Fair enough. So, would you recommend Kamen Rider Fourze, Tony?
Only if you're a die-hardcore Rider fan, but that's a stretch.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
listen, I
me.
wouldn't necessarily recommend it to a Rider fan, like, but maybe if it's like, oh, hey kids, do you like space? Well, you'll love Kamen Rider Fourze. I don't even think
No.
I'll do that. Like, I reckon, for me, like, I certainly wouldn't recommend it as a first show. I wouldn't even recommend it as a Rider fan. I'd probably say, if you, like, kind of outside the, an unorthodox, outside the box thinking, like, if someone was into, like, something wacky, I would be like, right, well, this is actually one of my favourite Kamen Riders.
As an independent.
Check it out. Yeah, so, like, probably not even someone who's into superheroes or Marvel or whatever. I'll probably just be like, right, you like wacky stuff, all right, we'll check it out.
I don't know. The only way I could recommend this is really if someone was really desperate and is a die-hard Rider fan who's a completist. Would have to watch it.
I can see why this is it. This is why I carried on watching. But then, if I wasn't the completist, I would have cut off, and then I personally reckon I'd have lost out. That I'd have missed a great show. But because I am that wacky, unorthodox, eccentric individual, so to see something like that on screen was something that I enjoyed watching personally.
That's just me. I can't recommend it in general.
Well, fair enough. Well, on that wacky note, thank you all for watching. Please like, follow, comment, and subscribe to us. We are the Toku Bros, and you can catch us on Facebook, Instagram, as well as this YouTube channel, as well as Twitter at Toku Bros 71, and myself, RyuKiva Toku, where I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, pledge on Patreon, and my WordPress blog is ryukivatoku.wordpress.com.
And then you can find me at the Winter Cosplayer on Facebook and Instagram, and just like old times, one fist through the cam.
To the cam. See you next time.